Hi, it's Michael and Anthony here presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for the current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, with Anthony Turner from the Small Business Mentoring Service, we'll interview a different small business expert or a fellow business owner and get them to share their best tips and insights for you, the listeners. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. Thanks also to our supporters, Kerr Capital and the Small Business Mentoring Service. Okay, so today's edition of Small Business Banter features a couple of really interesting guests, Deb Halpern and Jon Michail. Deb is a celebrated sculptor and artist, created some of Melbourne's most loved public sculptures. Jon is the CEO of Image Group International and has worked closely with Deb over a long period of time. I'll let you both firstly welcome in Deb and welcome in Jon. I'll in a minute just give you the opportunity to just give us both a minute or so on what you do. Also in is Anthony Turner, my co-host from Small Business Mentoring Service. Welcome in, Anthony.
Hi everybody, and great to be back again.
So the as I say, we'll go to your backgrounds briefly. To tie this interview together, what we really want to focus on is this incredible success you've both had in getting through what we've been through in the last 6 months. An amazing international success for you, Deb, in exhibiting in Taiwan. So we'll get to that shortly. But if you could perhaps first up, Deb, just give us a minute or so on your extensive and fascinating background.
No worries. Well, a minute or two, that's not enough time.
We'll add show notes later so we can.
The short version is, I grew up in Warrandyte, surrounded by artists. My parents were both creative people. And so my upbringing, I didn't ever really question whether you could make your living as an artist because I could see everybody in the community was actually living their dreams. Some people may know Potter's Cottage in Warrandyte, which was my parents were two of the founding members of Potter's Cottage. So the short version is, right. I grew up knowing from a sort of a fundamental sense that you could make your living as an artist, and creative people are creative, so they can make stuff up and turn it to reality. So as I went through life, I thought I might be a vet. I thought I might be a writer, and things turned out that I'm a visual artist. But visual artist means you can really go anywhere. You can create anything with anybody. I was fortunate to be offered a job to make a sculpture for the South Moat of the National Gallery of Victoria on St Kilda Road. So I really went for it. I gave 100% and made a sculpture that I really intended should inspire and excite and delight people. And that was really the big bang that launched my career as a public artist.
Excellent. And Jon?
Yeah, my background started a long time ago. It was another life. I started off as a designer originally with Christian Dior, the brand. That led me to starting my own fashion company, a manufacturing plant here in Melbourne. Couple of hundred people, including manufacturing for some of the biggest brands in the country. That led to wholesale, bringing imported European brands into Australia before they had their own retail stores here, Giorgio Armani, Gianni Versace, Yohji Yamamoto, among others. And from there, basically, I wanted to sort of control my own destiny. So I decided to open up retail stores. And the reason for that was because although retail is going through tough times now, retail's always been a tough game, and retailers were not paying their bills. So I had to take control of my own destiny. So I ended up having 10 stores. But what I discovered along the way was my real love was really human beings and less product. Although, I was very good with product and still am, there was a bigger connection with me with people. So that's what sort of led to the whole coaching world after seeing one of my mentors on stage, reading his book and so on. I thought, hey, I'd love to be doing that. And that's what led me. And that guy was Robert Ponce from San Francisco. He was the guru on the planet at that time. So we became partners for 5 years. And then I launched his work all over Southeast Asia. So, basically Southeast Asia was the first market before Australia. And, that's where a lot of the experience from my perspective in image and branding also comes from having worked in Asia for over 30 years.
It's a hell of a career, Jon, and you've obviously now been working with Deb for some time. Can I go back to the genesis of this interview? Do you want one of you want to just describe the deal? Call it a deal. I love the collaboration between artist and business advisor, mentor, because there's a lot of people out in regions making incredible produce, beautiful art, other creative outlets, and we want to inspire them that beyond their local, very localized view of the world, there is a bigger world and a market. So how did you crack this deal, and what was the deal?
Okay, so for me, gentlemen, and of course your listeners, it's always been every business I've launched from day one has been to create beyond your borders. So I've never been, the local, national type of guy. My perspective has always been international from day one. And at times when Australia did not think internationally, and you guys would be able to remember those days. So for me, it was a natural to look at what do we do, especially now that COVID has hit, and create outside, your current your current mindset, definitely, and create new possibility with no fear from the point of view, hey, if it fails, big deal. So the whole deal, basically, we competed with international artists, some serious players around the world. And to cut a long story short, the project, of course, is the Taiwan Museum, the new outdoor sculpture park there. And the reason, we got the deal done, bottom line, was because we built affinity with a culture that I understand well, meaning the Chinese. There was no, and the Chinese, as anyone knows, having done business in China, are tough negotiators that don't muck around. But the affinity was the key here. And the second was to get into their world, what we would call is their reality, of what the expectations were first, before I worry about our expectations. And we did that with a bit of toing and froing. And the bottom of that was we built good communication. And
that resulted in Deb being the artist in residence?
Well, it's actually no, her piece, her artwork, big, gigantic piece, is going to be the iconic piece at the museum ahead of the Americans and anyone else that's been selected. So she's going to be the iconic piece. And let me tell you, and this is the 100% truth, it didn't start that way. We created that. Okay, we were a small piece in this overall world puzzle. Okay, but what we did was we sold ourselves, and I use that term with a lot of conviction, because that's we sold ourselves, we promoted ourselves that this is world class, and we can stand up with the best on the planet. And I want to say this to your listeners as well as Aussies. Sometimes we really devalue ourselves worldwide, okay, because of our scarcity thinking or negative attitude or whatever, right? So, I'm being straight with you, and I'm passionate about entrepreneurship and small business, definitely 100%. So I just want to encourage and inspire, of course, your listeners that possibility exists out there, but it has to start with you first.
I think it's a great comment, Jon, because I think, a lot of small business owners do tend to think small and they don't realise the potentials they have. Being a mentor, like you, part of my role is to try and encourage people to bring that out. So my question is for Deb is, Deb, what did you find as being the real benefits of having somebody like Jon, helping you develop, your renown internationally, but also, you as a person and as an artist?
Yes, well, I've known Jon for quite a while, and then somebody, a mutual friend recommended. He said, "I reckon you and Jon could work together and create something extraordinary." So, we started off, we had some meetings, and, what happened was we needed to build up trust, because you imagine that I'm an artist, I'm working on my own, I'm a sort of, I'm a lone ranger, and, I'm so used to working on my own in my studio, having one-on-one conversations with people, that it's sort of, it's a great world, it's an intimate world, but it's a limited world.
It's very typical of most small businesses in Australia.
Well, yes, but it's a world that I understood, and I sort of trusted it because that was my world. So then, working with Jon, we needed to build our trust and our relationship, and really go through some, just getting to know you and getting to understand and getting to trust you conversations where, in the end, we were having just the most amazing conversation for hours, and about what's possible and what are your dreams and what are your visions. And Jon was extraordinary because he just let me go. He let me run with it. So that what I was thinking from my standpoint prior to this was, this is what's possible in my world, even though I'd made an amazing 10-metre high sculpture that stood in front of the National Gallery and all of that stuff. You're still trying to manage something. You're trying to control it and bring it in so that you can control it. And the great thing about the conversations with Jon was that it expanded. The conversations expanded. And Jon's like, and I'd say, one of my dreams is to have world peace happen in the Middle East by working with sculpture. And Jon's like, let's go for it. So, dreams and visions and what's possible and how you can make a difference, which is my passion and Jon's passion. That's what, sort of where we connect, our connection with making a difference for human beings on the planet. That's what we have been talking about. So when Jon came to me with the Museum of Taiwan project, I was like, yes, let's go for it. And so, as Jon said, it started off sort of a small project, a piece in one of many. And I'm like, no, here's what I want to see. I'm about making sculptures, big sculptures in my lifetime. At this end of my life, I'm not messing about with the little bits. Let's go for it and make something really extraordinary. And so what came out of that was, then I just had to push the barrier with everybody, with the people that fabricate with me, with the engineers I work with. And everybody has been so excited by this because it's happened relatively quickly. And without Jon sort of behind me, he's been like the wind behind me. Even though I can have all these conversations, I'd never actually had them because they weren't in my, the box I'd been in. So it's been a great journey so far.
It has indeed. By the way, on today's edition of Small Business Banter, we're chatting with Jon Michail, CEO of Image Group International, and renowned sculptor Deb Halpern. Deb, I love that. Anthony mentioned this idea of small business loneliness and inward looking and not trusting. So you've clearly and Jon sounds like that kind of guy that would just expand your horizons from, already the energy that comes across. To go back to something you said right at the beginning, there's a lot of incredible talent out there in regional Australia. And, there's this thing about belief, but there's also, you mentioned business as art, or art as business, I'm sorry, that you can have both. Can you talk about that? Because that's both a limiting belief, but also it puts a real, tourism in Australia, a lot of that's based on art, and it's increasing all the time. So how do we make more of those artists into business people or business thinking without corrupting the process of creating?
Look, I think all of life is creative. Everything is creative, and relationships between human beings are creative. One of the things I learned from some training that I did was communication is the key. And as Jon said, you need to have a go. So let's say I've been working in the Central Goldfields of Victoria, Maryborough City Council. I did an artist in residence project. I was invited in, so I didn't initiate it, but I said yes to the project. I could see the possibility. I could see they've got this amazing, they've got a whole park with a lake, and I can see festivals happening there and things really creating some buzz for the community, because it seems a little bit sort of down at heel. And so I'm going in with fresh eyes, and I have the audacity to just be able to go to the council and talk to the guys there and say, here's what I can see. Is this on your list of things to do, or could I develop it, or could I bring some people in? So I really come from just going for it. So, let's say there are people there who are growing olives and creating, olives, things, olive products. So there's lots of stuff happening there in the Central Goldfields, but I can see it. I can recognise it for myself, is that people are still working inside of their world instead of taking the risk. Someone might say yes, someone might say no, but it's no big deal. It's just like, well, why don't we have a long lunch in the centre of Maryborough? We bring all the people in with the, the artists can make, silk screen things, and bloody potters can make stuff, and, you can bring everybody together. I mean, don't start me. I've started now. No, but that's
started.
No, but that's the
keep
sort of
going.
thing. It's like even with the bushfires, the tragedy down at Bairnsdale, where I have, I'm sort of friends with people in that community. I was thinking, well, after the bushfires, why don't we make something? Have people bring things out of the ashes of their homes and make mosaic things. And I don't mean little mosaic. I mean more like fabulous sort of monuments to this event that's happened, and celebrate this community. And there are so many things that you could bring to fruition, but you've got to have as Jon has always said to me, you've got to have a friend in the council. You've got to have somebody like a champion in the council, because it just becomes unbearable when you banging your head against, people who just they can't hear it, and they don't want it actually, because it's just too much.
I think a lot of people, Deb, tend to sort of feel overwhelmed by the creative zeal. So it's just a question. So question for Jon, Jon, you're very much involved in the sort of image of people and, the imagery around people. A lot of people from my work in marketing, a lot of people tend to get confused between personal brand and sort of company or business brand and things like that. Can you maybe give a little bit of an insight into the importance of both for the listeners?
We're living in the most untrustworthy times in history. Human beings do not trust institutions anymore. Everything from the banks, government, church, if I can use that term, there's trust has been thrown out the window. So when it comes to small businesses, your number one tool to get people to buy you is the human interaction, who you are as a person. If they buy you, they buy the business. So when you're talking about an artist, we'll keep it on a very simple level. The artist is not selling art. They're selling themselves. And there is no dignity in living a life of a struggling artist. Contrary to how a lot of artists, as an example, are conditioned to think. There's no dignity struggling, to pay your bills to the point where you end up having mental health issues. Creating, if you really take it on board, is about living your life in possibility. So all business, and I've worked with small businesses to really large corporations, okay, worldwide. And the mindset is essential here, Anthony. And as you know, and you're a mentor as well, to inspire your clients in this case. If you can't inspire yourself, how are you going to inspire your clients? Am I right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So even the advice you get along the way, it better be the right advice, because there's a lot of advice right now, especially online, that's actually taking people into a disaster. So I would be saying basically right now, get really clear about your personal brand. Your personal brand is what distinguishes you from being a commodity. A commodity is not worth much in the marketplace. A brand is where all the value is. Coca-Cola, for instance, if we go into corporate brands, 66% of their whole value, forget about bricks and mortar, forget about their investments, is based on the name brand Coca-Cola. That is just extraordinary. McDonald's, by the way, with all their properties as well, is not too dissimilar. So branding is everything. And corporations would not spend billions of dollars if it didn't work.
Going back to what Anthony said about the enthusiasm, the overwhelming enthusiasm of artists, and how that can put people off, I really get that, Anthony. And one of the things I have learned is you can go in with your crazy, wild vision, but it's smart to be able to back it up with a plan. So even say if I talk to Jon about stuff, he'll say, well, we could get in touch with a developer who could, become part of your team so we can, forward that action. Or let's say I'm friends with the guy who initiated White Knight, Andrew Walsh. And so he and I have been talking about bringing a festival of inflatable sculptures to the city of Maryborough. And that's what I've been talking about. So here's a guy, Mr. Andrew Walsh from White Knight. He knows all about festivals. I'm not just some crazy woman with a mad idea. I've come with something that's going to contribute. I'm not going to just say to the council, here's a great idea, you do it. I'm offering something that is more than just, a great idea, which it is a great idea.
And with a track record of delivering, you've established your brand, and I'm sure Jon's played a major part in that. And look, we're running short of time. This really is a terrific conversation, both of you. The energy and enthusiasm for what you do is fantastic. Could we take two questions to finish off? One is, Jon, you're in a minute. Tips for branding for small business, whether they be creative or whatever.
Yeah, so if you can imagine on a very simple level, and this is what my work's based on, what's very popular, and Anthony will tell you this as well, obviously, as a mentor, most businesses want to come right now, they say, I want to get promoted, social media, right? I need Facebook, I want LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. But that's fine. But what they're doing is their foundations are not right. So the last thing you want to start doing is promoting when your foundations are not right. So when I'm talking about branding, you got to get your foundations right. Treat your business like a house. If you're going to build a house, make sure the bricks are all solid. Okay. So we say get your foundations right, whatever they look like. And then number two in this pyramid of three, for simplicity's sake, is then get into the promotion mode. The promotion is really, it's selling the sizzle before you sell the steak, okay? No sizzle, you don't sell the steak. And if you do sell the steak, I promise you, you're not selling it at the price you deserve. My job is to maximize value, especially on a world scale. And I'm very proud on, how we can do that. And number three, from all of this imaginary pyramid is, the last bit is the three outcomes you're looking for. Like most people, you're looking for, in business, of course, you're looking for more money. For a personal point of view and business point of view, it's reputation. And number 3, depending where you are in life, it's around legacy. Okay, so that's the model. It's about leaving something behind. And even if you ask Deb, from a non-for-profit perspective and trying to help community out there, we're very active in that area. We've always believed in it. It's not a trendy thing for us.
I've read some of the work you've done in the not-for-profit or supporting causes is outstanding. Deb, just in closing, what's your sort of message to those listening in regional areas to inspire them to think big?
Yeah, well, look, the thing that I know, this is what I know, is that is to bring the creative people into your community, and I don't mean bring them in, but allow them to flourish, will make a contribution and make a difference to your community. Whether it's sculptures, whether it's silos, I mean, how much of those silos they've transformed those areas. So let's say a little town like Maryborough, and a little town, just some little thing that's going to really make it iconic, like go to that place and let's go there, or let's eat at that cafe. That is going to make the difference. Allow the creative people to flourish and encourage them. And I tell you, those sort of collaborations with council and people will make all the difference.
Jon and Deb, thank you so much for your time. We seriously could have gone forever. We might do it again and have a session on brainstorming to get your ideas out there for regional communities, regional businesses. Well done to both of you. Really appreciate your time, Jon Michail and Deb Halpern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So that's all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. Anthony and I continue to be inspired by bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact Anthony or myself, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on both Facebook and Instagram. Anthony and I would love you to tune in at the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.